Now then, here we are, me and Mutt, sat outside my shipping container, just gaining a little bit of vitamin D for the day, looking at you through the beautiful moon arch that I've built. And today, I am going to show you what is in this bag, and I'm going to come up with some ways to improve on it. This is the HILLEBERG SOULO, undoubtedly one of the best tents ever designed and made, but it costs the best part of £1,000. £1,000. My whole last year's earnings were only £10,000, so 10% of that. Although I was lucky enough to be able to acquire this brand new for £420, but that is a different story. This is often seen as a bit of a status tent in the wild camping and backpacking game, especially by HILLEBERG owners. They often say that it is the best tent out there. Now, I would say the best tent out there is one that actually gets used. And I know that a lot of these tents get bought, used once or twice, and are not used again. You know exactly who you are. One reason for that might be because of something called the endowment effect. And I quote, "The endowment effect, the human tendency to attach more value to items we own simply because they belong to us." Well, if you own one, you're not going to want to be trying to make out that it's rubbish when you spent nearly £1,000 on it. So I think it's more of a self-preservation on how stupid or daft you may be, but I've got to say, it is actually an awesome tent. So anyway, let's go have a proper look at it, and I'm going to find ways that I can actually improve it, because I already know that there are some very serious issues with it. So, because I got this for less than half price, I have no attachment to it and I have no unjustified bias towards it. So let's go pitch it, and I'm going to shove some complete honesty into it. We'll find out all the problems, and then we'll see what solutions we can come up with to make this tent better. She is a beautiful tent, but I am not here to make her shine. The sun is doing a fantastic job of that already. I'm here to point out all the problems with this tent, and then hopefully use my brain to overcome some of those problems and find a solution. Now, the first problem I found with this tent is the fact that it's got 12 guy lines, and if these are not tied nice and tightly together, it is like being attacked by the triffids. You're literally just getting absolutely swamped by them, especially in the wind, and that potentially could make this tent the actual solo killer. Man dies strangled by guy lines on a mountain. Now, overall, it is awesome. I do like it, but let's delve into it properly and I'll show you the problems inside. We'll get this rolled back. The first thing to point out is the fact that it comes with an absolutely humongous stuff sack. I could literally use this as a bivvy bag. Now, this is great for storing your tent at home because obviously it's easy to shove in and it'll just allow it to sort of breathe a little bit better. But I will never use this in my backpack. I will definitely be making a bag that's going to be half that size. And for the money, I don't really see why they couldn't just make two bags, one for storage at home and then a second one with maybe a little bit of compression strapping or something to use in your backpack. So anyway, the next issue is this lovely gutter system here, which is a brilliant idea, but the problem is all the water that is going to be raining on here hits the gutter and starts running this way, and the end of the gutter, regardless of how far you pull it this way with the straps, is still going to run all that water into the inner of my tent. It strikes on the inside there, so it's going to potentially fill up the bathtub floor. So why they haven't just continued that an extra couple of inches, I do not know. The next problem is the fact that we have this sort of tensioner between the two poles here, and it is needed as part of the tent, definitely, but it's about sort of 18 millimeters wide, and either end has an attachment point which actually holds it vertically up, and that is just giving to me more of a trip hazard. So I think I would prefer to swap that out and maybe put something a little smaller in there. But let's get in. I'm going to change cameras because I can't maneuver you because you are on a massive tripod at the minute. Inside we've got this bathtub floor which sits up about 100 to maybe 130 millimeters all the way around. That's the toe end, and that is not quite as wide as what it is at the head end, just giving you a little bit more space for your shoulders. The problem is with this, look at that, it is as slack as a wizard's cuff, and there's just nothing holding that down, and I think that can be solved somehow. If I get a mat in as well, I'll just sort of show you the size in here, because it's not the biggest of tents. Obviously it is only a one man, but it's worth just making sure that you are buying the tent that's going to suit you. Crows are circling. It must mean that I am looking like I'm going to keel over. They're going to come and peck me body of all the last scraps that are on me. Not much anyway. I've added to the vibrant colours in here and put down a sleeping mat. And this is a large sleeping mat. It's 600mm wide by about 2 meters long. Now, as you can see, at that end, it's fairly sort of tight in at both sort of corners there. If I bring you round to this end, you can see we've still got maybe 150mm extra at that point. But if I lay down on this and put my feet in a position I'd be happy for my sleeping bag not to be touching the end and potentially getting damp, as you can see, I'm about touching here, and I'm 6 foot tall, so if you are taller than 6 foot, it might not be the tent for you. Hello, Bluey dog. Hello, gorgeous. Hey, you daft thing. He's just pottering about, loving life. So space and size isn't the greatest in here, and I've heard a lot of people say that they do sort of struggle with where they put things. So storage is an issue. As you can see, we've got 2 little skinny pockets there, which won't really take much, because as you can see, this is quite flappy, so you put some weight in there, it's just going to pull that down. So there might be a way of making better use of this space, especially if you've got a backpack there, because that's just going to take completely that bit up. You could put your bag there, but obviously if the weather's bad, it's not going out there. The next big problem is this. Jingle jangle zips. If you've got HILLEBERG already, you already know this, and there's ways to rectify it. Some people cut off all the metal and just add a bit of cord, but that is annoying. It is like a skeleton have a wank in a biscuit tin, that. So I'm going to come up with a solution to it, which might be a bit different to what other people have done. What else is there? The major problem with this tent is condensation, and if there was a top trump set regarding tents, this would lose every single time on condensation against any other tent. They are terrible, literally soaking wet through on the inside, and it's mainly because there's only one small vent system which is just under this hood here. One on its own doesn't work because you do not get the airflow. You need to have 2, and I just do not understand why they've not incorporated something else, maybe at lower level down there, or another one sort of on the far side. But it would be definitely something to consider doing, but that would mean getting the scissors out and proper cutting into the tent, adding a new zip system. And if I was to do that, which is definitely something I might do, I will put a second door in, which would obviously help massively to do with the condensation, and also it helps as well because 2 doors means that if you have a wind change in the night, then you might be able to get out of the other door, which is a bit more sheltered, rather than using this one. So watch this space, because I might actually do that. Anyway, let's get ourselves back home, and I'm going to just see what I can do just to sort of rectify some of these problems. Use this brain and hopefully come up with a solution. Right, I have set her up in the middle of my kitchen, ready to take her butchering. I have also set up my workstation, so I've got my sewing machine there. We have got some cutting tools, measuring tools, sticking and clipping tools, and there's also a knife which matches my worktop. In fact, Let me just show you that. This is something that I made quite a few years ago. You can see there we've got a lovely leather sheath which was made out of an old saddle, and inside it's just like a mini bushcraft style knife with a noose lanyard there, which I'd love tying. I think they just look the best, definitely. And it's a pretty awesome knife. I use it for doing quite a lot of cutting jobs really. You can see we've just got a belt loop on there. And I've made this so it's really perfectly fit. Can you hear that? Clicks in and it will not shake out. So I've put 2 holes in the end of this sheath here, so you could potentially just have it as a neck knife. Anyway, moving on, we have got some different threads, elastics, and inside my little box of tricks you can see we've got absolutely loads of different clips and attachments. We have also got some fabric. We've got some nice sort of stretch fabrics and a nice mesh one there, which I think is going to get used. That's definitely one for it. Bit of elastic, some Dyneema cord as well, and most importantly a kettle and a cup ready to make a cup of tea. Right, first job then. Let's have a look at this. Look at my nice dancing shoes matching my tent, eh? So as you can see, this just holds this section upright, and I would prefer that to be flat. I'm going to replace this with a bit of this Dyneema, and this Dyneema is 1.5 millimeters thick. As you can see, it's absolutely minuscule, but it has a breaking strength of 70 kilos. Now these guy lines have a breaking strength of 80 kilos, so you see the difference between the two there. Let me just bring you a bit closer. That is actually incredible. It just shows you how strong Dyneema is. So I'm going to fit this across here. The good thing about Dyneema as well, it's got very little stretch. I'm just seeing if there's any flex between the two door jambs, because I need a measurement which is exact to when it's actually in use and pegged out. And looking at it, there isn't much at all. So I'm going to measure and get the factory measurement between the two plastic round loops. You can tell I can't multitask, I can't talk and measure at the same time. So let's get that absolutely cock on. 1054, and that is from the inside of the ring to the inside of the ring. 1054, remember it. Well, I've already made a massive knot in this Dyneema, so let's just pull one section out, and we're going from A to B. Now what I'm actually going to do is just fold this over at one end, and I'm going to add a line lock, which just gives me a little bit of an adjustment. And the reason I want adjustment is because I've got experience with this tent where the zip would not shut unless it was forced. And if you force something, potentially it's going to break. I've actually broken a zip on a camp before, and it just meant that I failed the camp. So having that adjustment is just a little bit of a safety net, because then I can pull it in maybe by an inch by cinching it up, and just by doing that we'll just take a little bit of tension off the zip. That's my thinking. So let's get some cut and sort it out. Just looking at this, the stitching is very poor. It does look like it's been done by the HILLEBERG's dog, and even here we've got a couple of strands that have come loose, and if I pull on one, it's actually undoing the stitching. So that's not the best when it comes to the quality control. Anyway, we are replacing it with this, so it'll be really interesting to see if I've actually made any weight savings by swapping it out. So let's go do that now. I'll turn that on. Scrunch that up into a ball so it sits in the middle. And we have 7 grams. Let's grab this one now. Do the same with this. Look at me ruby red shoes, eh? Look like bloody Dorothy. So we'll drop that in the middle, and we have got 3 grams. That's not much, but pennies make pounds. I've tied it off at this end with a round turn and 3 half hitches. And then over at this side we have got the line lock, and these mini line locks are absolutely rock solid. They do not move unless I stick my finger in and want to adjust it manually. I've kept it fairly tight in this corner because obviously we don't want to have the line lock in the middle there, because it's going to add to the trip hazard, which would defeat the object. But overall, that is looking beautiful. And now it just means that I feel that needs changing as well, and we might even save another couple of grams. So the next job really is to sort this absolute flappy mess out. That is ridiculous. Now then, so I've decided to attach the bathtub floor to this line that runs this way, and to do that I'm going to have to sew through the actual bathtub itself. So I need to make sure that I am being clever with it and I get it in exactly the right place. So I'm going to mark it with a piece of chalk. I've got a mat in here which is representing an actual sleeping mat, and that's obviously going to hold it straight along this edge. I'll put some weights either side to sort of tension the tent just to make sure that it's in the right place, and also by zipping the doors up and down a few times just to make sure that everything is sort of in line and it's not going to be too tight where I sew on my attachment point. But the good thing is up here we've got a little bit of elastic, so there's a bit of give anyway. So let's just mark on here. I'll do a horizontal and vertical, and that gives me a point where we can start sewing. Right, this is the plan, the solution to the flappy bathtub floor, and I'm going to steal a design from the Fjällräven tents, which have got some very, very clever features, and this is one of them. So currently we have got the bit of material here that needs to be attached to this line. I have my mark there. Now, that is the size of the vestibule, and if it's attached solid then that is always going to be the size of the vestibule. But if I can make this slide along here and then open that vestibule up bigger for when I'm cooking, it's just an added bonus feature. So the way I'm going to do that, I have mocked it up here. So I have got the toggle which I've cut off the other end of this bit here, and I'm going to recycle that, and as you can see I've got 2 loops there. So I'm going to pop that toggle through, and then this is going to attach to the actual tent base, and then the line underneath is going to allow me to then slide it along and just bring it to wherever I want. And there's enough friction there, as long as there's a bit of tension through this line, to stop it wherever I want. Absolutely brilliant. I've just dropped the inner, and I've also taken off the old cord and replaced it with the new Dyneema one with the new sliding function. Obviously I've got this exactly the right distance, but the next job is to grab this and take it over to here and add the toggle. First job then is to attach the toggle to the little bit of webbing, and I'm going to cut a section which is just long enough to then attach to the tent base. So I'm going to guess about, give it a little bit of play, that long. So let's get my scissors, just chop through that nice and square, and then if I get my heat source, if it'll work, I can then just gently melt the ends there, just stop it fraying. So let's sew this together now. As always, it's always the wrong thread, so we need to swap this out. This is just some cheap cotton thread which isn't very strong at all. Just grab the bobbin, get rid of that. So the thread that I'm going to use for this is the Gutterman Terra 80, which is perfect for any sort of outdoor gear like tents or backpacks because it's 100% polyester. It's very strong, like it's pretty hard to break that, and it doesn't rot like cotton, so definitely the best choice for it. So let's get my sewing machine threaded up. Where's my bobbin? See, my bobbin's not got much left on it, which is really annoying because it makes these stitches bounce sometimes. So let's take this off, and I'm gonna have to redo this as well. Such good fun. Oh, now it's on floor. Right, let's thread the bobbin. And then we stick this in the machine. This is not a sewing class, by the way. I'm pretty good with a sewing machine, but I am no expert. Just make sure that's all in the right place. Click that in. And then we're off. So there's the toggle sat on the webbing. So all I'm going to do is fold that in half, and then I'm going to sew this up. But the problem is this is still quite a raw edge here and has potential to fray. So I'm going to just make a fold on both sides so the weak edge is sat within the actual webbing itself and sewn in, so it'll never fray. Just have to adjust that and make it as perfect as I can. Just like that. And now let's sew it. I'll just put a couple of stitches in to hold it in place first, I think, and then I can do it properly. And drop the foot down. Right, I'm happy with that, so I'm going to stitch it properly now. So let's just pop that back down. So there we go, that is neat enough. It is not perfect, but it is better than the original one, which was done by the HILLEBERG dog. Look at that compared. Yes, right, let's attach this now to that. This is where it gets interesting. Wrecking something that works well, but working well isn't good enough. I want it to work perfectly well. So let's pop you down there so you can see what's happening. I'll feed this under the sewing machine. I've got my mark here and my little tab that I'm going to sew on. So I think it needs to sit about there. Let's just get a bit of slack going on. I'm going to make sure this is perfectly aligned for me first. I do not want to be making any mistakes on this. I'll go up a little bit. Right, there we go. So a couple of forward and back stitches just to start it off. back stitches. Lift that up, needle up, and then we'll pull this out and see what damage we've done. Just give those a snip. Right, let's have a look. That's pretty good. You can just see that it's attached nicely there. And on the inside we have got a tiny little neat square. And because it's so small, I'm not going to bother trying to seal that because it's not really in a place where water's going to penetrate. I'm about 20 millimeters above my line there with the actual sewing, and that's the floor line. I know this does move around and it potentially could be underwater as such, but you never have a river running through your tent, do you? If you know, you know, and if you don't, you need to go watch that video. It's one of the best videos where literally a full river ran through my tent. Anyway, let's just have a look at this. So yeah, there's a corner. That's just been stitched and has not got any sealer on. So it's got like a bit of a French seam maybe, which does help, but anyway, let's go get it in the tent and see if it works. So exciting. So I've got a couple of weights just sort of holding the tent in position, pinning it out just like a peg would. And now we're going to attach this thing. That's the inner back in how I originally found it. I've just got one more toggle to attach. And that is to reduce this. That is as flappy as my massive baggy jeans were back in 1993. So let's see if I can feed that toggle through the loop one-handed. There we go. And straight away, that's got hold of it. But the best thing about this system is the fact that I can just slide that back effortlessly and open up that vestibule. Look how easy that is. Why it's not originally made like that, I do not know, because that has cost me probably about 50 pence in the Dyneema cord, and the two loops are maybe 5 or 10 pence each, so let's say 70p. So is this actually the best one-man tent in the world? Well, I've just proved that 70 pence actually can make it better, but I think I can make it even better still. So let's crawl inside and see what the next job is to do. Well, I think I'm going to attack this, which is the storage issue. We've got these two little pockets there and a little bit of space down in this corner just to shove a few bits. But apart from that, that's it. And there's not much room to do anything else with really, but the only bit of dead space is this here, because that's where your legs go. And I feel I can make something that is going to attach and fit there. But first job, cup of tea. Strong from the bag and milky, just in case you ever need to make me one. That was tiring. I have just been rubbing my two brain cells together for the last couple of hours, trying to design a hanging storage basket that fits within a curved tent. Rather awkward. My first effort was complicated. I tried to do some sort of fancy hospital corners and just make it have a little bit of a square structure on the bottom. But then I sort of thought there's nothing really square that's going to be fitting in that. So anyway, that's out the window. And I've come up with this. So as you can see, it's a tapered piece of material there, longer at this side than it is at that side. And that allows for the curve of the tent. And then the two ends, I've got two bits here, one slightly smaller than the other one. So the fabric I'm going to use is this, which is a strong polyester mesh, which has a little bit of stretch to it, so that will move around with the tent. And I've cut out, using my templates, a couple of bits of material, and what I'm going to do is use some folding elastic to edge this, which will fold round, and I can sew through that, which will just make it look pretty and obviously, hopefully, work well. So let's crack on, and first of all, I need to pin this on using these magic clips ready to run through the sewing machine. So this is going to be awkward without doubt. I've got all these clips on all the way around, and I've left a little bit of a longer section here because that's going to be fed into the machine first. And if you don't do that, sometimes the elastic can get pushed down into the machine and it sort of clogs it. So it's my way to hopefully overcome that. So let's just get it in place and get rid of that first clip if I can. Right, let's see how we get on with this. Let's take that clip off as well. I just need to feed it in because what I don't want to do is get the elastic to sort of bunch up, because if we're going around a corner it's going to be bloody awkward. You can see straight away I've just got a little bit of a bump there, so I'm just going to have to be careful as that feeds through. I don't know if you can make the stitches out there, but it's some sort of knitting stitch which has just got a little bit of give to it, and that's fairly neat, but I actually want it to be closer to this edge, so I think I'm going to do another one and tighten that up, but that is definitely going to do the job. I have finished it, finally. I have now got a storage basket which is ready to hang in the tent. So as you can see, I've got some elasticated edges all the way around, and in the four corners I've got these tiny little hooks which are going to hook onto the inner of the tent. Let's go do it, eh? As you can see, it's dark outside, so I've got a big bright light just to be able to shine on the matter. So in here we have got the original little tie-on loops. There's 4 of them in total, and I've just put this little line on there with a line lock, so that just allows me to hang a few bits off. But to get a basket to fit to one line doesn't work very well, because obviously it'll be wanging about all over. So I've actually stitched on another little loop there and also another loop there, and that allows me to have 4 points of contact, which is going to mean that this basket's going to stay a little bit more solid. Right, the moment of truth. Make sure she's the right way around, and then we'll get these hooks onto these tiny little tabs, which is a little awkward because they are quite small, the hooks. That's one done. There we go. Oh, hookity-doo-dah, hookity-day. There we go. Look at that. That is just brilliant. So I've designed it in such a way that when I sit in my tent, generally I'm going to be sat here because the door is out facing out this way, and that just allows this to be beside me. So it's dead space, it might as well be utilised. And I've made it in such a way that the elastic allows you to shove in pretty big stuff, and mainly a decent down jacket, because obviously when you're in a tent and things get damp, it's nice to just put the things that you need to keep dry up and out of the way. Right, let's demonstrate it. That is ace. I am well happy with that. As you can see, it's got this completely flat bottom which is parallel to the floor, and that is because I put this taper in just to accommodate the angle at dangle. Anyway, let's shove some bits in and see how it performs. This is my down jacket, so I'll just compress that a little bit. Now, I've allowed a bit of an opening here so I can shove stuff in from the end, but it's just as easy just to pull that down and shove it in that end like that. Yes, what else? I've got my cooking pot. This weighs about 500 grams. Pop that in the end. And a sleeping bag, although it's a very lightweight sleeping bag. We'll put that in there as well. That is just brilliant. There's about 1 kilo weight in there at the minute, and it is holding that completely fine. You could definitely add more, but obviously it's just reliant on these little tabs, so I don't want to overfill it. But that is, oh, just awesome. So happy with that. Anyway, what's the next problem we need to overcome? Storage is sorted. I reckon, oh I know, jingle jangle zips. So there's a few ways of sorting this, and there's one way that I've not seen before, and I'm going to try that first, and if that works, great. If not, I might go a little bit more drastic and cut these off. So I've got two different types of zip puller here to deal with. The inner one's a pretty standard metal, slim looking zip pull, and the outer is a big fat one that you can actually fit your finger end in. Now the ones that's the biggest culprit for Colin Rudolph is the inner one. This really does make a lot of sound, so I'm going to sort that one out first, and then if the other one annoys me at a later date, then I'll sort it out then. Let me just show you exactly what I'm talking about. So those are the inner ones, and the outer ones are these. Now the way I'm going to sort them out is by using some of these, which are electrician's shrink wrap just for sealing wires. All different sizes, so I'm just going to find the right one to suit the zip pulls, and then I'm going to use a bit of heat to burn the tent down. I'm just dropping these doors down because then I can move the zips into a place that's going to sort of be a bit easier to work with, because what I don't want to do is apply heat with a flame somewhere up there and then end up burning a hole in my nice tent. So let me just squeeze out of here and I'll zip that down, and then we need to find the right size shrink wrap. So starting with this, that is absolutely massive. That one, let's see if that fits on. It looks pretty good. That fits like a dream. That is the one. So it's a little bit long, so I'll have to chop this down. Whoa. It's all a bit awkward, isn't it? Hopefully you can see this. Although don't try this at home. Only idiots like me do daft stuff like this. So I'm just going to slot that into that sleeve, and then I'm going to chop the end off and just leave a millimetre or two just so it can shrink back. And then let's hope my magic tool's working. So we've got a bit of heat there, so I'll just apply a bit just to get it to grip it, and I'll work my way down If I keep my finger there, then I know how hot it's getting, so hopefully it's not gonna... That burnt my finger. I just don't want to burn the tent. That is neat. Look at that. Let's bring you a bit closer. That's pretty good. There's that little lip on the end where the hole is. I might be able to get it to shrink a little bit closer there. Awesome. Right. Let's get the rest done. Oops. What was I just saying about being daft? I have just burnt a tiny little hole in my inner tent there, which is a little bit annoying, but shit happens, so I'm not really that bothered. And it's now that a blind man on a galloping horse will see. And to be fair, I did say that I wanted to add some ventilation into it, so there we go. So the zips are done, as you can see, and they've still got a little bit of jingle jangle. So I will let you know over the coming weeks whether it actually works out in the field. And if it doesn't, I'm snipping them off and I'm going to add some little cordage to it to solve the problem completely. Oh dear me. What a brilliant idiot. So there we go, a very productive day solving some of the problems with this so-called best one-man tent. And for all you people out there that said this tent is bomb-proof, well, it's not even flame-proof, and it's definitely not idiot-proof. If it was bomb-proof, then they'd just put these over the top of like a small car, like a 2CV or a Fiat 500, that'd be better, and they'd send them off and use them as tanks. I am well happy with this storage basket because that's going to improve the workings of this tent massively. And also, it's just been proved that this is going to be a fantastic design as well, because obviously being able to just draw this back a little bit means you can reposition your gas stove to keep away from the fabrics that are obviously meltable. The label that was in here, I just ripped it out straight away. Never read those sorts of things. Anyway, I am going to leave it with that, and I'm going to get on the yellow brick road and go to find the Wizard of Oz and hopefully ask him for a new brain. So, we'll see you on the next one.